which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the agenda, we have 5 sets of minutes, 6 sets of minutes to approve. President's remarks, general manager's report, public comment, any questions, old business, approval of the calendar, discussion of board goals, this coming year, motion to reaffirm OPA vision and mission, motion to direct general manager to provide recommendations on the October meeting for updating the facilities planning work plan, discussions for fiscal year 2014 budget guidance, new business motion to reinstate aquatics committee, CPI actions, advisory committee appointments, adjournment. Any changes or adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. President, excuse me, I see a new motion to add a new member to the budget finance on our table here. Should that maybe be added? Should it be added to the agenda?
John Weitzelberger.
John Weitzelberger, it's on your.
Oh, yeah.
It was just sitting there.
Okay. We want to take these one at a time, I suppose. July 17th, regular board meeting. Changes or adjustments? Questions? Move that they be approved. Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Under public comments, Mr. Reynolds mentioned about searching legality of charging late interest and late fees. Do you know if that ever has been done or addressed? No, I just asking because I wasn't.
No.
Okay, that's all. Just asking.
July 18th, special meeting. Changes, adjustments, questions.
I do have a question on that too. I'm sorry, because I'm just catching up on all these minutes. Okay. According to Mr. Thompson, that we had a draft of the Yacht Club business plan. I would certainly like respectfully to ask for a copy of that. And has anything been done with the Yacht Club business plan? Has it been discussed in any meetings? I didn't see any reference at all to anything later in the meetings.
No, a copy was provided, preliminary plan was provided to the board of directors. I received feedback from the board of directors on it, and we'll be using that as we roll through the fall with our new
Okay, then may I ask for a copy of that, please?
absolutely.
And then my next question is, has that plan been provided to perhaps the budget or the club's committees? Because, no, it is
Still
not.
in draft.
Okay,
Still in draft.
still in draft. Okay, thank you. That was my question.
I would also like a copy of that plan.
Yeah, and as a follow-up question, the feedback, comments were provided, but there's been no response or discussion about those comments. Is that not going to happen?
It is going to happen. We just hired our, as you all know, our new chef. So the combination of the chef is kind of the internal guy, David being the overall and outside guy, outside being outside the kitchen. The three of us will sit over the next coming months now that we know what the facility is going to look like next year. We know what we're going to have to operate with over the next 9 months. So we'll develop a strategy for the incremental with the current facility as well as the new facility. We'll come up with a full plan.
And that plan would be not paying it now, but roughly available before the budget or after the budget?
For January's budgets discussion,
Well, that's
we'll have a preliminary plan. We'll have one wrapped up for the budget purposes.
So sometime around January, we'll see this plan.
Yes.
Yeah, I would submit that turning around this year.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I think it's a little bit late for turning around anything this year. And this business plan is something that we've been waiting on, as it's been requested for 2 years. And we had a draft, worked on it, read it, made comments. Now, that was what, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago? So, I mean, I understand new people have been hired, but, you know, the response time, if we had the new business manager, or sorry, the food and beverage manager for 3 months, is there some point relative to this business plan that we will get to hear what David McLaughlin himself has to say about it, or what he's going to do, or anything? Or are we just going to cruise into the budget and look at some numbers and we'll see another preliminary plan, which will be absorbed or subsumed by the budget discussion? I just don't see any progress here, Ron. I'm sorry. But I'll end my comments with that. I don't see it's going to do any good.
Motion to approve July 21st. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I should be abstaining. I wasn't at the last meeting. The first round was an abstain. This was also an abstain. I wasn't at either.
July 21st.
Or I wasn't at either as a director.
Correct. You were there for that. Public hearing, July 21st. Okay. Got a motion to approve, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained, okay. You're abstained. Another abstention coming, July 25th, special working session. Comments, questions, or changes? A motion to approve? So moved. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Still one abstention. July 31st, working session. Questions, adjustments, or changes? Motion to approve. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Organizational meeting, Wednesday, August 22nd. Questions, changes? Motion to approve? Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have just a couple of remarks to bring up. First of all, I want to thank everyone in the community who participated in the referendum for the yacht club. Obviously, we're pleased with the outcome of that. And secondly, I just wanted to let you know that going forward, we are working on. That's exactly what we're trying to fix.
Why did you touch me?
Yeah, what's with that thing?
It's you.
No, it's you.
Now it's you.
Okay. All that being said, obviously, turn this on. This is not going to work.
The only other one that's on.
Yeah, just turn it off. This is not going to work. We are working on a system that will allow each of us to have a microphone up here so people can hear what we're saying. Okay, so we have listened and Bob is working on that, hopefully to have something to trial, at least in the October meeting, to see what we can do, try to solve that. Obviously, this doesn't work. Or it doesn't work for me anyway, so we'll move on. Bob Thompson, General Manager report.
One second. You need to get there quick. I'll make sure you. I want to hand out some notes. There's no the yacht club, a number of other things right now, so. Okay. A couple things I want to hand out for you is, let's start with the yacht club handout. And there's enough for the audience if anybody wants one. All right, this is just a rough idea. Everybody was asking after, obviously after Friday, where we're moving, and this gives us a good idea of what's happening. We're on a dual track right now. First is we're on the right side of it, we're working with the county through the permit process. Technical review committee, then the planning and zoning. Our goal is to get the building permit by the November, have it issued in November. We're working through some technical issues as you do with the technical review, parking spaces, the soil, the whole 9 yards that goes into that. That's the process we've already started. We're working down that path. On the left side, as a matter of fact, I had a meeting today with the engineers and with the builders to talk about the contract, talk about where they see things and what we need to do to get a contract finalized. From there, it'll go to the contract review committee, and then it'll come to the board for approval. So the left side will happen quicker, obviously, than the right side, but that's the path we're on right now. I didn't put firm dates in yet. This just occurred Friday, so we need to get those tightened up. Any questions, John?
Do you have like a month that you might expect the board to get approval on the contract?
That will probably, realistically, next 45 days. Like somewhere in that time frame. It may be a little sooner depending on what we get through that.
Everybody hear that? 45 days? 45 days till
Contract.
the signing of the contract?
Well, until the
Coming
board
to the
gets the
board for
contract for approval.
Until the board gets the contract for approval.
Bob, how will you be keeping the public informed about the process of what's going on, time frame?
Well, for the contract part? Or
Well,
any-
anything. I think they just want to know what's happening. So are you going to be doing monthly or weekly things
Well,
of the?
we'll definitely do
email?
updates at every board meeting. I mean, that's a normal, and then as needed for any other updates, we'll do it. We're over the next couple of weeks, we're going to kind of outline, we'll come up with a strategy of how we're going to move forward with the project. A lot of pieces have to fall into place over the next couple of weeks. So,
And I know our press is here, they can keep us informed too. But I think people really are all excited and they want to know what's going on, so it would be helpful.
gotcha. Okay, the next thing I want to share with you is tennis. Okay, I did not make copies of this. This is an actual contract to replace the hard court. We actually had budgeted to replace some last year's budget, and then again in this year's budget. If you recall, we had decided not to do that until we got the drainage. What's happened with the hard court subdivision, we do repairs or redos, and the water keeps coming up and cracking the courts. We realized that this has been an ongoing problem. We've looked for a more permanent solution. We rearranged the drainage out there, which seems to be working well. We've also, we're attacking the last piece right now of that drainage between the tennis courts and the platform tennis courts. And there was still a low spot there, which we knew we would need to address, which we're working on now. And then the last piece now is to move forward with the actual courts. We sent it out for bid. We received, of the 8 contractors we were talking to, only 2 issued a firm bid on it, went through that process. back and forth, leveled it all, and decided on which one, and that's what you have in your hand. So it's our intent to move forward with that. Of course, it's an expensive project, so I want to bring it to the board's attention before we move forward.
Yeah, let me add something to that. I've been working with the Tennis Advisory Committee, who also, they did a lot of legwork on this project, putting together work plans, so that we have to recognize their efforts in working on this. They are in favor of the Sports Builders Inc. has been picked to do the work. They've looked at the work plan, they agree with it. So I think we do have the backing of that group, and they're very anxious for this work to start the first week of October. I'm assuming that's when this work will be able to start, or something near there, so that the weather will not affect the actual work. So I just wanted to let you know that this was vetted through that group as well.
Let me ask a point of clarification, please. On paragraph 6 of capital budget, we have budgeted for this for a total of $155. It's in our budget for this year.
Correct.
And this number is under that? Is that
Correct.
including the fencing at that number?
That's
Total
correct.
number in there?
Yes.
Okay.
How much is it? 118. 180,000. Do you need action on this today, Bob?
If I'm going to finalize the contract to get this completed, yes.
I move that the board approve the project as ordered.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Any questions? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, this is just FYI, doesn't need any firm action today, but I want to keep you in the loop. And I have made copies for the folks in the audience as well. Okay, the White Horse Boat Ramp, I'm sorry, yeah.
Just a quick question on this tennis bid. How do you see the process that we gave the work to contractors? How do we find the contractors? Just post it on our website and advertise?
The contractors, I can give you a list.
No, I'm wondering how we got the word out that we were bidding.
It was. We have, as of June 24th, these were the potential bidders. We actually sent email and phone calls to them to see.
Where did we get them from? Did we advertise on the website?
It was on the website.
It was at one point, but I don't know where all the names initially.
Oh, that's all I was curious
Yeah,
about.
I don't know, but we did reach out to all
I mean,
these.
we're not picking contractors, we're out actually bidding it.
I don't
Advertising.
know any of these people, yeah.
Great, that's all.
Some of some of the names came from the management company that we pay to help run the tennis
Seacom?
courts. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing with you a preliminary look. White Horse Boat Ramp has been an ongoing challenge. We need it's budgeted to do some work over there. I want to give you I've just received these. These are the most updated ideas of what we're looking at. First page is just location of the ramp, just for purposes of knowing where it is. Page 2, okay, you're looking at the existing piers. Okay, everybody see that? That's as it lays out now. We're looking at page 3, actually, is a change to the way that a change in the way the plan or the boat ramp has been constructed. The ramp has a significant drop off now. Okay, people have been complaining for a couple of years about it where the boat falls off. What we've done is come up with a different strategy. Instead of just digging them out, replacing them as is, diking it off, putting concrete, we looked at some other ways to make it a more usable area. And what we took was, if you have been over to the West Ocean City boat ramp, you notice it's a floating ramp in the center there. And we've designed a structure here where we've taken instead of having the 3 piers, we've put the floating ramp in the center, which actually allows you from either side to launch your boat. What we've done is made a steeper ramp from the parking lot side down, and then created the pier, the L-shaped pier that's at the bottom half of that picture, to allow you to tie up, and the L actually gives you, if you launch your boat, you can actually move it around to either side where you see the 25-foot section, so you can get out of the way, move your trailer, so others can use the ramp to either come in or launch their boats, and it just gives us more workable space over there.
Yeah, the floating dock in the middle is a great idea, especially if you're dipping by yourself and you have to step off. So, yeah, that's great.
Well, I tell you, it wasn't. I can't claim the idea myself. I had a resident come up and meet us down there and do a walkthrough, and yes.
Yeah, this was the week, Bob and I walked through this with Frank Watkins from, he's a big builder around here, and he did a lot of work for us to come up with, not this detailed drawing, but the
No, just
concept
get
of
the
it.
idea, sure. So we're pressing forward with trying to find out if this is a good solution. You guys are the first, guys and gals are the first to see it with the new design. Thought it seemed like a pretty good strategy, so if anybody has any input on it, please let me know.
I like this side L shape for having had my share of adventures over there. That's a good idea.
Yeah, we thought about the bulkhead on the north part of it, where the stone riprap is where we initially thought about extending the dock area. But when we went back and looked at it, talking to Souley, it looks like it may be better to do it closer to the southern or the lower portion of your paper, the L that way. It seemed to work.
That's pretty deep water over there, if I remember correctly.
On the north side of the new plan that you have, there would be just a series of pilings and a wall. Would it be terribly expensive to put a little bit of ramp in there, just parallel to the concrete ramp itself, so that you have a place to step off your boat if you're bringing it in that particular side?
On
the floating ramp.
On this side?
Yeah.
Well, the challenge with that is that the impact there, from a safety concern, is the tide level.
Yeah.
By having the floating ramp that adjusts up or down, we want to encourage people to use. We made this one, the center one, the floating dock, wider. That should be the one
Oh, I
we're
see.
going
You're
to.
gonna bring it all the way out to the end.
Yes.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
One other question, Bob, is there any opportunity to build into this plan some kind of expanded or better kayak launching location?
Well, if you recall, what was it?
Yeah, I know that they do it over here.
Was it Marine Advisory? If you recall, the Marine Advisory Committee last year did a pretty detailed plan on kayak launches and made the recommendation we were good with what we had. We didn't need doing. So recently we received, as you know, an email from a resident wanting to expand on that, and best thing I can say is if that's the case, we want to take it back to the Marine Advisory Committee and let them make some recommendations. Their last recommendation last year was leave it as is.
We'll ask them. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, just some updates for you. No handouts on this. Roads, we are, as you know, we've identified and I shared the information a couple months ago, the roads that were in the worst condition. We're proceeding with that from the standpoint of we put it out for bid for the worst condition roads up to $400,000 worth of work. So we'll know, and I'll bring that back to you once we get those approvals. However, we also have to, and Sharon and I spoke about it earlier this week, the county's also looking at replacing a lot of their pipe here in the Pines. That's where you're seeing a lot more cuts on the road. So we're going to, when we get the bids and we get confirmed, here's what we're going to do. We're going to coordinate with the county before we do any work, because the last thing we want to do is put new pavement down and then have the county say, whoa, this is an area we need to dig up to put, the new pipe in.
There are three spots on Ocean Parkway, recent county road cuts that have washed out the center and are pretty deep. Yeah, maybe our guys can go just put some cold patch in or something.
The county, when we call them with those, the county usually responds the same day on it. So I prefer to have them, when they do that work, to repatch it. And we typically, when Public Works rides through in the morning, if they identify those, they'll call the county and they'll fix them.
May I get an update on that, please?
So, yes, ma'am.
I was at the wastewater meeting on Tuesday. They have identified about 256 sites just on Ocean Parkway alone where they need to cut across the road. Now, some of them, they can, depending where the line is, they don't have to cut across Ocean Parkway. And they're moving that to a tier 1 situation to get that done, because the last thing they want is to cut across newly paved roads that we have. But you do need to be in contact with them, and I told them to contact you also, because I know you have a different schedule of what you're going to do.
Right.
But the side roads are not as much an issue, but Ocean Parkway being a dual lane is. So I think it's important that you do talk and communicate with them. And from what I understand, what the water line situation is, it's lines that were buried somewhere between 1980 and 1990, and their piping is failing. And it's in their budget. It costs about $2,000 a unit to replace. It's all paid for by the county. But they're having 500 water breaks a year. It's amazing. So it's a serious issue, and they are dealing with it. So I think it's important that we know it's being dealt with.
And just to a step further on that, our roads plan, our past roads plan that was 3 years ago or 4 years ago when we finished with it, or I had to stop because we were no longer receiving funding, if you recall. The next 2 sections were Parkway. However, when we did the report over in the spring, and we had the engineer come out, the Parkway was not in the worst condition. A lot of the side roads were in much worse condition. If you recall then, I reported to you all that we would be addressing the worst condition, therefore we're changing our focus from the Parkway to the roads in the areas that need the most attention.
I have a map that I received on Tuesday. There's 285, excuse me, I'm wrong, units that are actually marked, indicated that are involved, and I'll be glad to pass it around to the board so you can look at it. This is just the Parkway they're doing a study on right now.
Thank you.
Okay, an update for you all on the bridges. We received last week from the county the most current bridge reports. I've been asking them for that. They've given us the updated ones. We're going to be meeting in the next 2 weeks with John Tustin and several of the other county folks involved, figure out what our plans are going to be moving forward with the required and the needed bridge repairs. I will certainly have an update for you all on that at the October meeting. But we're finally getting some traction there. We're going to be moving forward. If anybody would like to see those bridge reports, you're welcome. Give me another couple days with it just so we can get them all reviewed internally, and then we'll be happy to give them to you guys to look at. Your email should be working now. Did everyone get the test yesterday?
I did.
Yes? Yeah, I did. Everybody good? Marty, did you get the test yesterday? Okay, so everyone, all right, so our email, they found a couple settings and issues that just were causing some of the challenges we've had. We believe we have it all solved. We, being Cards Computers, working on it for us. So if you have any issues in the next couple of days, please let us know right away. But we think we have it resolved now. Appreciate your patience on that.
Emails that came in while we were having a problem, were they still somewhere in the system so they can be forwarded on, or were they kicked back to the sender?
I have no idea. I can try to follow up on it. But we didn't.
I know mine were kicked back to the center.
They were all kicked back.
Okay.
All right.
They're in the ether.
Email heaven.
Okay. Another project, as you know, that was approved and we're working on, just as a quick update, phones and or computers. We're working through that process right now. We've met with multiple companies on both sides, the infrastructure with phones, the switches, the computer networking. PA separate, but we are looking at those things. But as you know, Dave Schwarten has left as our pretty much internal person. He was a contractor, but was internal with the technical side of the house. So we're kind of readjusting our thought process moving forward, how we want to manage IT as a whole. And we're trying to look at all the pieces and parts that we have. Is there a better solution to handle that? And that's what we're working on. And my goal is to give you guys a good thorough report at the October meeting with the changes, what we're doing moving forward. In the interim, we have been working closely with BDK and with Cards Computers. BDK works with our Lances system. They've been working with us for a number of years with that, so we haven't lost any ground there. And Cards Computers was our elevation point when we had issues that Dave either was having a struggle with or it was just something he didn't have experience with. He would call Cards or BDK. So what we're doing is just working at those, working directly with those two companies right now. The focus right now from everything that we're looking at looks like we'll be going down a path of a managed solution for the internal, the networking side of it. But I'm not ready to offer that as the final solution yet until I get all the bits and pieces. Okay? But we are working that project.
And as we move forward towards that, there was a suggestion made the other day at our meeting that there be a Wi-Fi system, open system, established in the administration building. And as you all know, I've been asking about Wi-Fi in this building, because people do have important meetings here and need access to the internet. I would like to see that escalated and done as fast as possible. Okay?
Okay. Next thing I want to cover with you, project-wise, we are about to begin phase 2 of the Golf Range project. The applications for soil erosion, sediment control, Maryland Department of Environment, stormwater have all been done. Our goal is to begin the project sometime in November. It looks like it's going to, depending on weather, we're aiming for the very end of November. We're looking at the changes down at with Casper and their management. As soon as the new manager gets in, I want to talk about the package play, figure out how we're impacted there, because our goal was to get through the fall package play season, because there's a lot of income there for us before we start the project. And as soon as that's done, that's why all our applications and everything are done. It's just a matter of taking that next step forward.
As we move forward into phase 2, I know we were looking and aligning some of the drainage work that needs to be done for some of the other parts of the community. Are we still looking to align that work so that,
Yes.
assuming that we would reinstigate that work that needs to be done to address that?
Well, it's a budgeted item. So yes, we're looking at drainage, and I don't have that information right here, but the drainage in the general area of the golf course that impacts Hingham Lane and that area, yes, we are looking at, and we're getting, I met with Soule 2 weeks ago, and they were identifying with their plans. They went out and shot the grades, and we actually have some areas where the way the drains are supposed to work, it's actually the grade either level or the wrong direction, just over years of sediment and settlement of issues. So we're looking at that to get a larger impact, to how to get the water away from the community, the best way to do that. So they are absolutely looking at that. And that is a budgeted item, so yes. Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a budgeted item, true. It is budgeted to the extent that I believe the board approves a $450,000 loan to proceed with the work. I mean, that's what's in the budget to pay for the drainage.
Okay.
So at some point in time, I believe you're going to come before this board and say, we need a $450,000 loan to do, and that would, TBD, I guess, or it's not a far away TBD, it's in a couple of months.
Is there an actual
Do you understand what my question is?
Well, the two-part.
One at a time.
Well, no, two-part. I'm not sure about loan situation. We haven't even talked about that one. But yes, I'm working with the Soule, also looking at, I've talked to McDonald and Sons, who are doing the Greens project, who can do the drainage as well, because it is in the same area, and I'll bring that back to you all for final review before we move forward with the drainage.
Okay, well, as in any project, there's two aspects. One is the financing, and one is the contractor, what actual work is going to be done. And in this case, as far as I know, these docks have not been connected on the work to be done. You're saying that's what you're going to do with Soleil. Of course, the difference between the Greens program and the drainage program is that the Greens program was done 9 holes at a time. So, in other words, the course is closed, and we played a 9-hole course for a good period of time. Okay. The drainage program, the course was never closed. We did it 1 hole at a time, sometime where we could actually taking care of 2 problems like the driving range. Now, when you talk about combining the two, you're still talking about closing the course, 9 holes of the course, to do the greens, and working in some drainage on that at the same time.
That's correct.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns that I know some people had, and I'm glad you're aligning the work. That's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the get-go, I said, if you have a whole lot of equipment out there and people with shovels and doing work, and you have 2 things to do, would it not be more economical and reasonable to try and do the 2 things at the same time? And I never heard anybody say that, no, it wouldn't be. But we didn't on the first part anyway. Now, the side of the coin is we're talking about what periods of closure and what the impact would be certainly into the spring and the spring package play, and never mind the fall. At any rate, I'm guessing that we're going to see something complete in time and with sufficient time to review it before we go into making those decisions. And you're telling me that we will.
Yes, so just give me an update. That's exactly
An update. Right.
Yes.
Sharon was first. Okay.
I just had a question. This is not a budgeted item. This is a loan that we're actually doing.
It's a budget.
So it really isn't, we're not taking out a loan for
No,
$400,000.
it's
Okay.
budgeted as a loan.
I just wanted
It's
clarification.
budgeted as a loan.
Budgeted to be financed as a loan.
It's a loan.
We're gonna borrow $250,000 to do that project.
Just look at the back of the budget book. I'm sorry.
Two two quick questions. I hear this coordinating, but if I'm reading the budget book correctly, the drainage is Fairway 11 and 12, and the greens are 1 through 9.
No, sir. 1 through 9 are completed.
Okay, well, the book,
11 through 18.
it says 1 through 9 in the budget book.
I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But I
Greens,
believe
1 through 9, $450,000 for next year.
we completed 1 through 9.
I hear you. I'm reading the book. and the book
Okay,
says-
fair enough. I'm telling you, I'm bringing.
I got it. I'm
And that's
correcting
why,
your budget book.
no,
as
but
we
and
speak.
to Mr. Stevens' point and to your point, we waited for the drainage to A, figure out how it was going to impact us last year, and B, now that we're addressing on the back half of the course with the equipment, the manpower, the labor, everything's there, now makes sense to attack that issue
Yeah,
there.
it does. It
Fine.
just didn't make sense in the book.
Yeah, gotcha.
Second question was, we financed the first 9 greens with the lifetime membership sales. Can you give us a status on that?
No, sir, we did not. The financing for the lifetime memberships were, for the second half, we have approximately 54,000 raised so far.
Well, now I'm really confused because we've got this greens in here at $450,000 for next year. It's a budgeted item.
I'd be happy to pull the budget book out when I get back to my office and answer those. The goal was to have the Golf Greens project partially paid for by the lifetime golf memberships.
Right, $500,000, as I remember.
Okay.
450, half of it.
450 to 550.
That's at 450. And how much have we gotten so far? That's
254,000 approximately.
plus or minus.
Yes.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, Marty sort of brings up a good point. Now, I know what happened to the 450,000. For the back nine, the 450,000 was taken out of what we call the historic reserves. These are the reserves that are funded through the depreciation of all of our capital assets, tables, chairs, whatever, the gazillion of them that we had. So basically, the board voted to take $450,000 out of those reserves and apply them to the golf greens on the basis that golf greens are really an asset too. They were not a depreciated asset, so where the money gets back in there is another question. Okay, never mind, different issue. Okay, now, the second part was to be paid for by the lifetime memberships. It wasn't clear to me, it still is not clear to me, if you don't have sufficient money for the lifetime membership, where it is budgeted to pay for the remainder of the golf green, the golf greens program for the back nine, since that will be done during this specific budget year. Now, where would that money come from?
Well, when I'm ready to bring that information to you with the next phase of the project, I will. I just gave you an update where it is now. At that point, I'll have the updated, here's exactly what the numbers are on the golf greens, or with the lifetime memberships. Here's exactly where the coordinated effort between the 9 holes green project and the drainage project. Here's my recommendation, here's why, here's a recommendation of how we fund it right now.
Okay, and I would only ask that we get that information in sufficient time to be able to sit down and analyze it carefully. Part of that, by the way, should be impact on operations, obviously.
If I may, Dave, I also think that a little bit of minutes research, and I'll be happy to do this if you'd like, to go back and look at our votes on the Greens project and on the financing side of the Greens project is probably worthwhile, because as I recall, and I may not be correct on this, we voted to approve the Greens project as a total project, broken into a spring and a fall half, and then we talked about different ways we were going to raise money for it, but we didn't specifically allocate funds. So your point's correct, I believe, in terms of where's the financing coming from. But it's all in the minutes. I mean, it's on tape and it's in the minutes, and we can go back and take a look at that.
Yeah,
I just
Dan,
don't remember.
My memory is the same as yours, that we've asked the entire project that the funding from the lifetime memberships would be helped pay for
Right.
portions of the
That's what I'm
second
getting
nine
to.
to be done. But let's not argue it here. Let's do the research and report back as to what it was we did. Okay, thank you.
I would suggest, by the way, that as that time approaches, Tom,
Yes.
that you look into the calendar and set aside time for a special meeting where we would have the information.
That'd be fine.
And be able to go into this in detail. Because this is not a trivial
I
problem.
agree. I think I have a history of not being afraid of calling special meetings, so that won't be an issue.
May I ask just one more question,
Sure.
please? If the greens are closed, this would be the back nine now, that sometime in November-ish.
Right.
Is it a 4-month project, 5-month project? Do you have any idea?
No,
It won't be open for spring play if you don't know.
No, the intent is to be open for spring.
It is, okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's absolutely
The
Good.
reason for the scheduling of when it was all
Perfect,
outlined to begin with.
thank you.
God, the gods of weather.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Let's hope for another mild winter, okay.
Okay, accounting. Let's see. At the last meeting, I was asked to pull information about TGM, our current auditors. And we did not make copies for the press on this one. This is the current, there was a question about whether we approve or don't approve, and I believe, and I apologize for not having a break from, Dan, you might be able to help me out. Is this a discussion item later?
No.
Okay. Okay, so this was something I was asked to share with you at this meeting. The talk, we were talking about the professional services and talking about we approved as an association, the board approved moving forward with council, but there seemed to be a question about certified public accountants and who we use and how we use it. And I pulled the current agreement or letter of engagement with TGM as I promised I would, and that's what you have in front of you. This was for the past year's work. Every year we do one of these. I do have an updated 3-year agreement that we haven't executed yet because it's just that. When you do a professional agreement like this, you may do a 3-year, but it's really an engagement letter more than a contract, more than a formal contract. And the letter of engagement allows you to disengage within 30 days if you no longer want to serve the professional services of the organization. So I did do some research on it. The other thing that I looked into, and I'm sorry I don't have printed documentation for you right now to review, but how often companies change their accounting firms. And at the last meeting, some discussion was every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it should be rotated around. Everything I'm seeing that I could find on the net when I did a little bit of research on is the larger companies tend to stay away from that because it's that corporate knowledge for professional services that keep you out of hot water as you move forward. So you all as a board have to make that decision, but everything I could see showed us that. I also reached out and spoke to Pete Gomsak, a past board member, and the primary reason, as you all know, he was with one of the largest accounting firms in the country, and I asked him about it, and he said it was not a frequent to have a turnover. You typically lose a client. You lose a client because there's a clash with personalities or a clash with, something was found that was just wrong. It's not typically negotiated. So that's the information I found. Here's the information on where we are currently. It's up to the board to discuss it further. Yes, sir.
How many years have they been our auditor?
I want to tell you 7, but I can find that out. Art's not here. I was going to turn and ask him.
You think it's been 7?
Then I can get that information for you before the meeting's over.
Yeah, that's 5 years. Dan can add on, were they the auditor all the time you were on board?
Yes.
So that's 15 years.
They've been 15 with us?
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
If they have, they haven't steered us straight
No,
to
it was switched just, I think, the year before I came on board, before the first year I was on board.
So that's you were on 6.
I was on
We were
6.
on 5.
You were on 5, that's the one.
Okay, the length of time that someone's been with us is whether they're doing the job right or not. At this point, Terry, I would like to turn to and ask you to put together a assessment of this situation and have it ready for the October meeting.
Yeah, real quickly, I can just tell you that the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board is opposed to changing auditors. And they have actually done some research into that, and they asked 611 public firms. 611 public comments came in within a month, and that was this year. 94% did not agree with changing auditors.
Okay.
So I can do
Well,
Can
let's
you
get
get
all
that
the
report?
facts together and go from that. And then Dave will get to you with the question in a second. Just ask you to have it ready for the October
Yep.
board meeting. Okay, thanks. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I have, but nothing against TGM and no big reason to change orders either. But I'd still like to know what we can do, and I don't see in here, reading this letter for the first time, what does allow us, or where does it say anything in here about disengaging?
I'll pull the 3-year contract that they've supplied me
said,
This was last year. This was the engagement letter we had.
this is the engagement
We need to do
letter,
another engagement letter.
But we have a extant 3-year contract with which is probably expired, but it must have provisions for continuing.
This is the current contract.
Right, that I have in my hand.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I will say, unless I missed it real fast, there's nothing in here about disengagement.
Okay.
Okay.
But this engagement letter finishes with the audit that they've just completed. In other words, they are not, from what I'm hearing here, Dave, and I very well could be wrong about this, but at the moment, we are not under a pending letter of engagement with TGN for work for our last year's tax situation and last year's books. We are in the process. Bob has a 3-year letter of engagement pending review and approval by the board, but that hasn't been done yet. So in other words, you don't have to disengage from something you're not engaged in.
Okay. This is the one I'm trying to pin down. It's a simple thing to find out what your contractual obligations are. Are we, in fact, do we have any obligations at all with respect to them? In other words, we could go out and hire somebody this afternoon and send them a letter next week and say, oh, by the way, you're no longer on.
Page 3,
Yeah.
second paragraph from the bottom. Was it, anticipated engagement discussed above does not exceed 17 months for the year ended April 30th, 2015.
Discussed above.
All right, well, let's take time to read
Which
this.
is
That's
what
why
the
I'm
work
supposed
that
to
they're
give it
going
to
to
us.
do. I mean,
April 2012 has passed. This was work that they did for us.
right. And it's done, and there's no contractual relationship between we and TGM at the
At the moment.
Okay.
Terry, so you'll,
I brought this up at the meeting, and I had simply asked the question, how often do they put it out for bid on something like this? And it turned out that it's been a long time since that was done.
we'll let Terry bring her proposal to working with Bob to bring us a proposal. Next.
But I still would like to know the length of time they've been engaged.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Terry, we put that in your summary? Thank you.
Green books. Last piece, other than CPI, I have for each of you. The last few weeks, I've had a lot of requests for information on engineering, correct, engineering reports. Now, with that being said, you have most of this or all of this, and you're shaking your head, I've given this to you in pieces as the information has come available, and we've made decisions over the last couple of years based on that information at the time. However, currently, with new changes on the board and a lot of heated discussion back and forth, and quite frankly, just threats of, if I don't get this X and if I don't get that Y, I thought instead of just providing for one, I went back and got all the research and provide for all the board members. You all have it in bits and pieces over the last couple of years. That's how we made decisions to move forward. It's all been put in chronological order. The work's been prepared behind it, so we can show you what we've done. So threats of litigation, because we're not getting information, just isn't factual. But I want to make sure everyone had it in a reasonable way. If there's anything anybody has a question over the next couple of weeks about it, feel free to let me know. What's that?
Engineering reports.
All the engineering reports on the Aqua in the last couple of years. Thank you. 18 years?
Do you think, Bob, is there anything in this that wasn't on the disc I got from a contractor?
I don't know what this you got from the contractor.
Your card was attached to it. I would assume.
I didn't provide it for you, so I don't know what you have. TGM, 18 years. Prior to that, 15 years with Pig Crawl and Stern.
18 years.
18 years.
That it? That's it? Okay, moving along. Public comment.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. On the boat ramp, as I understood the problem that we were trying to correct, I could be wrong, at the end of the existing concrete ramp, there was like a drop off. The wheels would go off the edge of the concrete, and then that was the problem we were trying to correct.
Correct.
Just briefly looking at the drawings, it appears to me that the new concrete is going to be in the same location as the old concrete. So what are we doing? I see no notations on the drawing about what we're doing at the edge of the concrete to either correct or prevent that problem from happening again. Because even if the concrete's new, if there's a drop at the end of it, we still have the same problem.
Good question. There's a good question there. The slope, as we have it now, best way to explain it. If this is our slope now, okay, with the concrete being on my right side here, the slope is going to go like this.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to eliminate that. The parking lot being up this way, it's actually going to be steeper, much like the Ocean City did this. They made a steeper ramp. So what happens as your boat goes, it starts to float off and drift off sooner, so we don't have that hard edge moving forward in the future.
So you want to get the boat off the
On and off the boat, on and off.
before the wheels hit the end of the ramp.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay, good. On the golf drainage project, that project was started back the last time Dan was on the board, maybe 2005, 2006. I've had a couple of people who are knowledgeable in this field express a thought that we're but we're spending more money to do golf drainage project in stages than it would be if we just went in and did it at one shot. Now, if you think about it, this golf course has been under some sort of construction, manipulation, temporary fairways, temporary whatever, since 2005, 2006, on and off. Now, this year we did the first 9 greens or second 9, whatever it was. And then we're going to do the more greens, but we still got 6, 7, 8, 9 holes to do golf drainage in. But we're not doing them all at one time. So we're looking at work going on at that golf course over the next 3 to 5 years. I think that now, let me backtrack a second. I think the reason that it was decided to do this in partial stages, well, there were 2 reasons. One was you can keep the golf course operational while you were doing it. The other was that if you did it all in one shot, you might have to go to referendum. And typically, boards don't want to go to referendum, even if it might be the best, assuming it was approved, it might be the best way to do it. But I think that perhaps the board ought to give some thought at this point. Since we're going to be doing greens, we're going to be disrupting that course beginning, when did you say? November. To, at that same time, go in and get it all done, even if it means that we have to shut the whole course down for a few months. Get it done. Hopefully at that point, the course will be good for another 20, 30 years. We shouldn't have to do any more golf drainage on it. Just get it done. What's the worst case scenario? If we have to shut the course down for an entire year, what is the worst case scenario? Based on history, the worst case scenario is that we don't lose $200,000. That's the worst case scenario. We only have 130 members, give or take. So I think it's something that the board should seriously discuss. Going in there in November and trying to get that whole course back in shape in 3 months or whatever it takes. And just do it and get it done over with, rather than prolonging it again for another 3 to 5 years. Constant disruption. I think it's all part of what people complain about. We never seem to have anything completed over there. Thank you.
Anybody else? Media.
I want to thank the board and Bob for supplying handouts. I very much appreciate that. I'm sure the rest of us here do as well. I was just curious, the agenda as it's set has the media questions at this point as opposed to the end of the meeting. Is there a reason behind that? And if there is, I'd be curious. If not, I would ask the board to consider having those questions at the end of the meeting.
There is absolutely,
He leans back and I look at
there
him.
is absolutely no particular logic in putting them where they are, and there's absolutely no reason, from my perspective, on the agenda, not to put them at the very end, so that you have the opportunity to ask about.
That was the
what's
reason for my
happening.
question.
I understand.
Yes.
So certainly, I don't see any reasons for not to change it.
Any objections to?
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Old business, we met on Monday and talked through the calendar for the year of our meetings. Need a motion to approve that calendar?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Discussion.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to point out to this new board that 4 of us on this new board work full-time positions, and that we try to tone down the number of times that we're going to say automatically, oh, well, we got to have a special meeting for this, a special meeting for that. The 3 meetings that we had all together within the last 8 days could have been combined into 2. So what I'm simply saying, maybe for the convenience of us that work, don't make so many special meetings. Let's get it all done at once. Just a thought.
Fair enough.
I had 2 thoughts a year.
Got one left.
Call the question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, discussion of board goals for this coming year. We began that discussion on Monday. Any thoughts on, at this point, key objectives that you all would like us to focus on this coming year?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'd like to somehow see in here that we have more communication with the public as to what's going on. Increasing that either through quarterly town meetings or something that people can come to on a Saturday to find out what's going on.
Okay. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, I had the same problem late last night. Dan was referring to the board goals. Where are the board goals? I lost them, I guess.
Well, they were part of the material.
Oh, is that
We ended
that
up
colored
meeting
sheet?
on Monday.
Get that calendar.
That's that colored sheet.
Colors.
Okay.
It's the second,
And we
that
have,
page, that's the second page of that.
okay,
Is the
sorry about
objectives from
that.
last year that were handed out on Monday.
Anyway, and- Yeah, that's in-
Just for the purposes of everybody present, let me just read last year's objectives so you'll know where we're starting from on the page in front of us. It was review and approve general manager's long-term facilities plan to include the means of financing the plan. 2, evaluate and pursue efforts to identify additional funding and funds through federal and state grants. 3, identify, review, and adjust and/or approve key maintenance programs such as road paving and golf drainage. 4, review and approve plans for IT implementation to include, but not limited to, video equipment installation and a Pines card concept. So that was last year's 4 objectives that we had and we have one suggestion so far, that one of the objectives is that we focus in on communications to the community, as in town meetings, something. Obviously, the wording's got to be put together, but okay.
I think we need to keep the IT one or enhance it, update it.
I have a motion that goes to number 3, later on in this discussion.
There's actually a motion to the, not number 3.
Number 1.
I believe it's number 1.
Well, number 1, but it also would include.
We also
3.
include them. So we have, and obviously I'm going to take from this discussion we're having here and draft some formal outline of what we've said here. But so far we have enhancing communications to the community, the possibly town meetings. Well, for the record, I think we've improved that
Oh,
a lot
definitely.
over the last few years, but
Yeah.
improvement is always possible. Keep the IT update moving forward. I agree, Terry, we should keep that. 1 and 3 are actually captured in the motion that's coming up later in the meeting from Dan. Is there anything else?
We did agree last year that the grant funding should just be a continual process. So we should probably,
Okay.
that should always probably.
Keep in mind, because we're an HOA, the things that we're gonna be eligible for in grant funding are probably only gonna be law enforcement for public safety things. Most other things we're
No,
not.
that's not true. No.
Well, that's true, Ray, unless we can actively interact with the state to put some form of what's been politely called the
That is in
Columbia.
that's actually in
And-
process right now.
And we have
I know,
committees
yeah.
we have committees that get grants all the time, even, so that's a lot.
Well, we do have don't we, Bob, have a grant person in the police department?
That's what I mean.
Full time.
Yep.
Yeah, environmental has, almost everything they do is through grants.
Right.
I would like to suggest that we make the grant portion of this a separate activity and become much more of the focus of the activities of this board to work on. I lived in Columbia for 20 years. We're not a complete clone of Columbia, but we clearly have all the pieces that they've got, and we are the second largest HOA in the state. So I think there's some real validity to us as a board addressing that challenge, trying to get some of that fixed put in place.
Wouldn't this fall under the auspices of the Budget and Finance Committee, though, Terry?
Not
Search
necessarily.
for
Not
grants.
necessarily, not necessarily.
So it could be any organization,
This is more of a
Yeah.
legislative
It
board
could be any.
activity.
Any group could, okay.
Environmental.
Yeah, like I said, environmental,
Let's do it.
everything they do is through grants.
Okay.
Right.
Communications, the committee has gotten a grant, a couple of them. So,
I think, for my personal, that this is something this board ought to take on.
Yeah.
an
Something to
institutional,
work on.
yeah, right.
This is not operations day to day, this is long term, but obviously we need to be in sync with what's going on operationally.
Cool.
Yeah. Just one other suggestion, considering the fact that in areas like tennis, the yacht club, and aquatics, and to a lesser extent, we're facing this year record losses. I mean, I'm quite sure we'll break the records by the end of the year. Basically, I thought we ought to have some kind of objective that would relate to how we're going to turn that around or at least stem the flow of losses. There's nothing in here that addresses that. And the losses come from losses in membership, too. I mean, had, look at the membership list, further decline. It has to do with the business plans or the total lack thereof. So I don't know exactly how you write that objective. I certainly wouldn't put in get a business plan because that shouldn't be a board objective. It should be a board objective to get one to review it. But all of those areas where we're having significant, significant operational losses need to be addressed. Should be addressed. It's our responsibility to address. Okay. And it's not in. That's all. And I don't care.
Well, I'll craft some language around that. If I have to. Anything else?
Could you just explain for me, please, the Heinz card pass concept in a bit more detail?
Take a shot at that one.
Sure. We've gone to the one card, so that's our property owner card that we issued.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about. You notice on the back of the card has multiple ways to scan or swipe information. So we can, the new cards can be preloaded with, right now they're loaded with your information. You can load full pass information. Our goal is to get to the next step where you can actually load money on it so you can spend at the yacht club or the country club through a swipe. So it's using our membership card as one card to make multiple access points and or spend money.
Thank you.
To clarify that, just to add to that, is the idea is they would be potentially become a debit card. It's not a credit card, it would be a debit card.
It's like it's like college student ID.
Right. Cash card. Yeah, it's like a cash card. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I will draft up a proposed list and get it out to everybody. Okay, motion, Dan Skachersky.
I have two, and I'm just going to take them in order, Mr. President, if that's all right with you. The first one is Mom and Apple Pie. The Board of Directors hereby reaffirms that the vision and mission of the Ocean Pines Association are as follows. Quote, Ocean Pines will be a premier resort community offering exceptional value and quality of life to property owners who are diverse in age, economic status, and interests. Mission, to provide the governance, administration, facilities, services, and amenities that are necessary to make Ocean Pines an attractive, affordable, safe, and enjoyable place to live and work.
I'll second it.
The reason for this, we talked about this in our work session on Monday. I didn't hear anybody disagreeing with it, but as in all board situations, I'm a personal believer in the fact that a vote is a much better idea than just, gee, that's the consensus of the group. That's why this motion's out there. That's all the discussion I have on it.
Your comment?
Okay. Yeah, just to point out that I can't go back exactly, but 4 years, something like that, in fact, we created these, and they kind of held up over the test of time. If you think it's important to reaffirm them, that's fine, but I would think it'd be more appropriate if you didn't like them to make a motion to change them. I should point out that Bob used them last year in his June 17th report, opened up and said, yep, this is what I have. Fine.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Call the question. All those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next.
The second motion that I have goes to the goals of the Ocean Pines Association. It's specifically designed to establish one kind of overarching goal as follows. The Board of Directors hereby directs the OPA General Manager to develop his recommendations to reactivate the Facilities Group Plan as defined in their June 17, 2011 report. And for those of you who don't have it, it's in a big 3-ring binder. You should get a copy if you don't have it. These recommendations will be delivered to the board at their Saturday, October 27, 2012 regular meeting. The object of this motion is to obtain the general manager's recommendations on the steps necessary to move from the plan as reported on June 17, 2011, to a comprehensive, accurate, workable 10-year plan, including requisite work and financing that the board can vote on to approve in June 2014.
I will second that.
Thank you, sir.
Discussion.
I'm just going to continue reading down this sheet because I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to get all this stuff out earlier before the agenda came up. With the passage of the Yacht Club project, it's time for the board and the general manager to finish the process of developing a master facilities plan for Ocean Pines that, in my opinion, covers at least the next 10 years. This plan, as it exists today, is an excellent model wherein much of the basic asset and project identification work has already been done, but priority selection, careful definition of the scope, time, and cost of each project is yet to be accomplished. Now is the time to reopen this project with the goal of putting a true master plan for asset management into place for Ocean Pines. The impact of this motion: first of all, OPA capital budget, specifically dedicated reserve accounts for the accomplishment of the comprehensive facilities plan, are part and parcel to this program. Once the plan is defined and approved by the board, long-term financial requirements, and therefore special capital reserve requirements, can be identified and funds directed into the accounts so that the organization is prepared to fulfill its vision and its mission. Yes, sir.
I like the way this has been put together, because the last time this was done, and I know some of us here that were involved in it, the majority of the things that were put into that plan have been accomplished.
Yes, they have.
And in order for us to do it again on a long-term basis, this is excellent. I'm also going to work with Robert on a short-term basis. Things that have to be done that have come up based on his recommendation, what is prioritized. So that would be kind of separate from this, but it's all going to be the same thing. This is a great idea that you do it.
I'll take my 2 cents here, but obviously I think if we can, by June of 2013, 14, have this completed and ready. This is a lot of work to do this, and it clearly is a tremendous foundation in the June 17th reports and the binder, the concept of campus management and that change that happened. I'm completely in favor of this, without question. Have a comment?
Bob, the facility book you gave us day one, Sharon and I, did it have that letter in it? I mean, I haven't seen that letter that I know of.
To be honest, I don't know which one. I had 3 of those books, whichever one I was
It was
asked to
June
give you.
17th
Which,
report.
do you remember which one you
Yeah,
requested?
you need to copy that one for Marty.
Okay, I can get you a copy of that.
You need a copy of this.
So I'd like to see it, but I'd have to abstain on voting for it, having never seen it.
No, this isn't, we've already approved the book.
I understand that, but I can't vote
Okay, you can understand.
to vote on a motion that includes stuff I've never seen.
I'd just like a clarification. I, as you know, haven't seen the book either, other than what we talked on Monday, so I'll have it soon, for sure. What you're asking for next month is just to begin the process, is that what you're saying?
I'm asking the general manager to make a recommendation to the board. As Tom just pointed out, this is a very big job.
Huge, yeah.
Okay, and you can't do the big job without thinking your way through how are we going to go about doing it. So the thrust of this motion is simply to go to the general manager and say, A, we want to try to accomplish a comprehensive plan for the capital assets for Ocean Pines, its long-term, by June of next year. How do we get from here to there? And in our October meeting, get the general manager's recommendations for how he thinks we should go about doing that as a team. And that's the board plus the administration of Ocean Pines, plus the committees, plus anybody in the community or outside the community that we need to call in.
The one, this reads 2014
Yes,
instead of 2013.
it should read 2013. I'm
I
sorry.
thought I had 2 years.
No, I'm sorry, it should be modified to read
So, I would
2014.
officially
Okay.
request that you amend your motion.
So amended.
Okay. Read 2013. Any other questions, comments?
On that? Sure. Yeah, I just should preface my remarks by saying that I voted against this the last time they voted to approve this. And mainly because I didn't believe that it was anything like a real plan or had any substance. I still go back and I read it again and I say I'm looking at a list, basically a list of things that we have and which obviously have to be repaired, replaced, done something with, for some period of time into the future. I believe that the motion which I vote against, I think some of you have touched on the problem, is that it's far too complicated, this much too complicated task to be able to even get a reasonable start, even an outline of what can be done or what needs to be done. If you look at what's transpired between the time that this thing was written, over a year and 3 months ago, we've got to the point where we finally got to a yacht club and it's a design and it's going to be built. During that period of time, we talked about other facilities such as the country club. And it went, I didn't go from, proposals that came out, it's a newer, bigger, get outside package play in their country club, to redesigning a Robert Trent Jones golf course. Anybody remember that? In fact, the starting point, if you go back 2 years, from the old facilities committee for the country club was pretty simple. It said we needed a new yacht club, and it basically specifies the size. This one's a little larger, but that's okay. It got fast, and that's all to the good. It said that the country club would basically not fall down and would be a reasonably safe facility, although it needed bad maintenance. We knew that 2 years ago. We got a report that tells us that that's in fact really true. The real issue of the country club, which was, and it's a report that's cited in here, is what is it for and what do you do with it? That question has never been addressed since that time. You referenced the Stevens Duke report, and basically what it says is, look, it's primarily a golf facility, and it's incompatible with large weddings and a whole bunch of other things. The report's there. It's been around for time. The point is, and by the way, there's also a look at the entire campus, if you will. The parking, everything around the country club. The point is, we had to sit back and figure out what to do with it, the functionality of these things. Now, we didn't touch really on the beach club. Well, we did touch on it, except to say, what is it going to be in the future? What is it going to be when it grows up? The functionality. What is it that we really need in Ocean Ponds? All that work's there. It's out there. You can criticize it. You can look far enough ahead or whatever. But I'm saying to vote on a motion or to believe that this is the thing that's going to get us going forward, I think it's just flat out wrong. I think putting a timetable of, what was it, October, I don't care, anytime this year. Yeah, all of this, we do need a facilities plan. And by the way, some of what happens with the yacht club will determine what we need in the future. And we don't know that yet because we don't have it.
Okay, so you intend to vote against this.
So,
this is clearly
yeah.
a motion to put in place a plan to implement. This was a starting point. This is the next phase of that. Any more other comments? Yes.
I was going to say exactly what you just said. We have to start from somewhere. And why not start with what's already there and do what we need to do, the work we need to do with it. So,
All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? abstaining or?
Abstaining. I haven't read the material that's.
We will take a 5-minute break and then come back to,
Good idea.
See?
I know, that's terrible. I throw everything out the door.
I mean, I kind of knew what it said already.
I need to use that against our board over there for our budget and finance.
When we get to it, Chip, I'll double check it because I've got his application here. I just got it stuck somewhere in the file.
You're gonna walk her stage next week, right?
You know, I had a strange.
Over here or in the back?
About this.
Whatever that was.
I don't think you guys are ready. My suggestion is that we start the conversation. Oh, I have. I can't sit down. I start breathing up. I don't know. I was waiting for you. I yell back. That would be my suggestion. So it's fairness to everybody. I think it's gonna happen anyway. Maybe.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Maybe amongst you guys. Yeah. What we're trying to do here on both sides.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you
The conference room. Because we're every year. But another small group without a lot of distraction.
I haven't had a clue. I understand that. Director's and I don't want to change it.
Oh my gosh. Take a vacation.
CHP office, there's one dealer in there. He sets them up, the CHP guy comes in, drives his old bike in.
And where's Mr.
It's like that guy that 15 hour doing.
You know what? It's costing entirely too much money.
Very popular.
Yeah.
Sets back up. It ends up costing
probably next farm. And it's mom and apple farm.
Yeah. Because you're the sailor.
No, it has to be, we don't do that. And, we do it, we've done some of it.
The other car had rusted brake line, brake tube.
Done some of the work already.
Are you waiting? That's the idea, is to looking at that.
Marty's stopping.
Yeah. We're sitting here next year saying the same thing.
On the other one, by the way.
I'm already on the
Yeah.
The 100,000 was
Yeah, you know.
Motors.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask you.
whole process.
But they're here to get it right.
They got it. Oh, yeah. That's what I was doing that. That's what we did in Waco. When we were doing committees. Oh.
But, the fact of the matter is, I know
Oh,
that
that's
that.
true. We have budget. I'm sorry. Well, and you know, like all the committees last year already had. No, last year. When we did this last year, we didn't do chairs. We're playing golf together. We're gonna try to play golf. Well, you saw my email yesterday. I was both members of the library.
Come back and report up together.
So,
I didn't see what you said.
I thought. Well, the issue is what the contract. Joe Brown's comment about this.
Okay, let's reconvene.
water, Marty, find it.
I have one at 3 o'clock.
5 minutes are up. Thank God for that.
Okay, let's get started. Terry, I'll move to you for the discussion of budget guidance. Do you have a document?
I handed out budget guidance on Monday. It was emailed to you. There were a couple changes in it. One of my thoughts over the last day have been that people probably didn't have enough time to think about it, consume it, develop it, decide what they wanted in it. So if you so choose, instead of trying to talk about something that you haven't fully thought about yet, we can do this conversation via email, if you want to do that.
Question to the gentleman, President. At what point do you need guidance from the board in order to begin developing your next fiscal year?
It's a double-edged sword when you ask. Of course, I need more guidance right now, sir.
Thank you.
But realistically,
We've
already started some things that we know needs to be accomplished. I obviously will need to meet the board's guidance, so the sooner the better.
So by the end of the week, I mean, we've done that before. We've given ourselves until Friday or the following Monday so people have a weekend to work on it. It was done so quickly on Monday, and there's only been another day, and it's kind of not a lot of time to.
So you're
to think about
proposing
it.
that people feed back to you their reactions to what was
Right,
handed
I'm
out on
asking for,
Monday?
if that's what you so choose, or if you don't want to do that, and if there are no objections,
I have no problem with that.
if you don't have any objections to this guidance, then we can do it. I mean, so there are your choices.
Well, I've read this and personally think that it meets a lot of board comments that have been made with respect to budgets and budget development and plan development, the materials in here, I think it's a pretty good piece of guidance, perfectly consistent in that.
I think you use more time. I was up and pretty late last night. These are kind of my comments in here. To go over them now, but once I get past midnight, I kind of go downhill pretty quick. And so I prefer to wait. I mean, I guess we could do some preliminary comments now.
In light of Terry's suggestion, I believe we will give folks till Friday without your input. Everybody, please copy everyone
Yep.
on their responses.
Just make sure-
And Terry, over the weekend, you can pull together a final document of this
Yep.
that we then all can review. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
New business. Oh, Terry, this is your motion.
Oh.
Reinstate.
I have a motion to reinstate the Aquatics Committee to active status. Not a background. They were suspended in May of 2012.
I would, do I have a second on the
Second.
discussion?
Do we need to read the discussion?
Yeah, go ahead and read that
Okay.
part.
The Aquatics Committee members briefly discussed the reason for the suspension with Tom Terry, Board President, Terry Moore, Board Liaison, during a special meeting held on May 29th, 2012. With the summer swim season starting in the next few days, the committee was asked to utilize this time to think about the future of the Aquatics Committee, bring ideas, suggestions at such time that the committee is reinstated and reconvenes. The usual meeting date is the fourth Tuesday of each month at 4 o'clock.
I'm completely in support of reinstating this. I said I think the committee-
Just a point of clarification, is it the same committee that's going to be involved, or are these new people coming up?
As far as I know, it's the same
It's the
committee.
same thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
No reason to drive a change in that.
No, there was no reason to change committee members.
Are any of the committee members employees or subcontractors of Ocean Pines?
No.
No.
Okay.
Would the chairman remain as the chairperson?
I would say there was some discussion about that before we left them. The thought is that probably the first meeting will be something that it's going to kind of be an organizational meeting, that first meeting, to decide how they move forward, who moves who's doing what. We left them at a point where they all needed to kind of consider what the Aquatics Committee's mission was, what they were supposed to be doing, how they were supposed to function. So I can't answer that. I'm going to say for the first meeting, that chairperson would stay the same.
Thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. CBI.
Let's start with the smaller, or I'm sorry, 73.
Windjammer.
The property is in, yeah, you see the mold and the wood and the shingles. It's unsightly, yeah, it's very, very unsightly. We'd like to move forward with sending to the attorney so they can send a letter in action for correction. We've attempted to do so, and they've had no positive response.
Owners in Florida.
Which, yes.
Any questions?
Some of this is are things that we could do and charge back, but we
Yeah.
couldn't go in and repair the screens. So,
Why not?
well, I don't know. That's a good question, Marty. That's why I brought the point up. I mean, can we go repair someone's physical structure and build them for it?
This is like first regular meeting in 2 years. I mean, as a board member, but the 3 years, sending letters from a lawyer the guy hadn't paid his dues. I mean, why not go fix the property and bill him? That's what our documents tell us to do. I mean, our declaration of restrictions says that with a supermajority vote of this board, we go in, we fix it, and we bill them.
If I may, interestingly enough, to Marty's point, the second one that we're going to talk about today is what our recommendation is to allow us, I need supermajority of the board to do that. That's not a normal course of action we've done in the past.
I know.
Yeah, but the only other thing we can really do is find the guy in continuing violation of the restrictions. I mean, right now, other than the fact that he hadn't paid his dues, he can use the facility, he can vote. I mean, we got no meat here, unless we're gonna go ahead and find him in continuing violation.
Well, we can't vote if he's delinquent in his.
I said that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, but his house could be falling down if we don't find him in continuing violation.
May I ask a question? Could it possibly be in foreclosure or abandoned? Is that possible?
Sure.
So do we have a right to go if it's in foreclosure now? Perhaps it's even bank-owned? We don't know that.
We have the right, with a majority vote, to go fix a violation.
But if it's bank-owned, wouldn't we contact the bank and tell them the condition of it and that the homeowners, I mean, we don't know the status of who owns it, do we? Because they have not claimed anything.
The lien.
The letters, they have not picked up the
The
letters.
lien would go against the property no matter who owns it.
Yeah, but via certified letter which was received on June 9th. So someone received the certified letter from us on June 9th. I don't know if it's the owner or the bank or whoever, but whoever was the addressee of that letter, they got this, right?
That would have been the owner.
It would have been the owner. So they got the,
But we still don't know he's actually in ownership.
I don't think that.
No, we don't pull the records to who owns the property. We go by our records.
You're in real estate, girl.
Well, I know, I mean, I'm saying, because we do have foreclosures in Ocean Pines, and we do have homes that have been abandoned. If I was living next to this home, I would be really, really upset. And I think we do have a right and should deal with these issues. But the question is, who's the owner? If it's the bank, then we go after the bank. If it's been abandoned, then it's the owner of record, but we don't know who it is.
okay, let me, juxtapose both of these in front of me for a second. The one on my left here is the second one that we were gonna talk about. Has this been through the full, I don't remember all the names that you sent me.
It's been through the process.
So this-
What we're asking on this one is to stop going, anytime we engage the attorney on any of these, our costs are incurred.
Right.
This one, we're sure that the property, with the amount of reasonability that it's abandoned. Failed attempts, failed follow-up, nothing. So what I'm going to request on the second one is that the supermajority of the board approval to go and clean it up. To Marty's point exactly.
Right.
We have not, this is the first time in quite a long time that I've requested that direction, but only because we've exhausted our process and we don't think continuing to seek attorney's fees are going to net us any result. This one is our first step at legal. There are many times when they ignore our letters, when they get a letter from the attorney, a heightened level of understanding, a heightened level of awareness, they tend to, it does create some action. To Sharon's point, unless they're in foreclosure or bank, but we wouldn't know that at this point.
So the one that's on the table in front of us right now has not been through our process that we've been using for a long time.
Up to the attorney part.
To
it
the
has.
attorney's
Yes,
part,
sir.
we're now, what Marty, if I understand your suggestion, is we basically forego the lawyer part of this.
It's not a necessary step.
I'm just
Yeah,
trying
I'm
to
saying-
understand what you're suggesting. we do.
Association's right to perform in certain maintenance. And the board of directors says have the right to its agents' employees to enter upon the said lot, repair, maintain,
My
restore.
my question would be, at what point do we have the right to do that? And when do we?
You know what? I don't see a time frame here.
Well, I don't either. This is what I'm trying to, from your comments, I'm trying to get a time frame here of in the flow, because we're gonna have more of these coming forward. We got initial inspection, first and second follow-up, you've got a process that we've been following for years in this process. And the step that I'm used to over the last 2 years is at this point, we send them a letter via the lawyer. At what point do we stop following that process and not do that and simply go fix it?
Can we,
Terry,
can we
Dave.
just for today continue what we've been doing with this particular one? And then have, maybe a couple people look into changing that process and bringing it back to the board? If we want to do that?
We can do a lot of things, if Dave.
Yeah, there's a couple of issues here. The first one, my first question is, it says send to OPA attorney for what action? What is the action?
They actually send a formal letter from the attorney that you need to comply, and I don't have a copy of that letter from us, but it's the same one we've been using for a number
So,
of
okay,
years.
so the action in this particular case is to send another letter.
And if
Yes,
you
that's
don't,
from the
if you don't
attorney.
comply, we're gonna send you another one.
See, the other letters have been from Mark.
There is an issue, and I brought this one up to Tom Terry about a month or so ago, and we still have a complete action to go over and talk to Joe Moore about it. And this was brought by the judge, basically an informal conversation with Chris Woodley, who then passed it on to us. You know, stating that we needed something more specific in the language. And by the way, I didn't hear this, okay? So I'm only repeating
I
the
understand
secondhand
that.
thing. What we want to do is confirm exactly what the judge said, and so we'll understand it better. But at any rate, and that had to do with going in and removing things. I mean, the real, a real issue, more than one, but a real issue is that when you go in to clean up property, if you look at these pictures, I believe that Marty's correct, we have the authority to go in and do that if we vote by a supermajority of the board to do it. So you do it right now. Where it gets difficult is if part of the action is, for example, to repair a house or to move something which may have real value is in the yard. I mean, it doesn't belong there. We said it doesn't belong there. But does that give us the right to go in and take it out and put it wherever? And for those kinds of things, you would like to, I think, have a court order that says, yeah, you're right, go and do it. In order to get the court order, we must have language that would support our ability to do that. And that's kind of the issue, I think.
Hang on 1 second, Buck. I know that you and I talked about it. Because that's a carryover into this year. That issue we're talking about. Because as Dave says, he didn't hear it said, I didn't hear it said, but I think you may have had a conversation with Joe about this whole issue of what the judge did or didn't say, or we had that conversation.
I'm going to have to go back. I can't comment on that.
Okay.
Joe wrote a letter just to bring it up to date,
Right.
or an email, and I pointed out to Tom that it didn't really address the
Right.
question, the real question. I heard about it as liaison to the ARC when it was brought up as a CPI ARC issue. Why would it be an ARC issue? Because it may get into the guidelines. So it's something that really should be pinned down.
I would agree with that.
Ray, go ahead.
A lot of this started to come up over a couple of years ago, not because of the debris that this is here, but because of the vehicles that were parked there and what their intrinsic value may be to somebody else. And that's when the removal thing came into question, not debris.
Mr. President?
Yes.
There's another legal point associated with this one too, and that is, do we have the right to enter their property to correct this stuff? Do we actually have the right to physically enter their home? If you're going to correct screening and things like that, I think we're overstepping the bounds. What I'm getting to is, we started this discussion on Monday, and we kind of walked away from it without dealing with it. But doggone it, we've got a corporate attorney, and he's not here, and should be here, in my opinion, to be able to answer these questions so we don't have to dance around them for 2 or 3 weeks and finally figure it out. It's ancillary to this point, but I personally would very much like to see Mr. Moore present at these meetings, so that we don't have to argue about legal issues. We can get an opinion right there.
I would agree with that.
Yes, sir.
First, I'm sure I'm in agreement with what he just said. I have two questions. Normally, we got these back, I'm going back when I was, before the meeting, because there's a reason you need to get board approval on those. And I have a hard time, you gotta go look at them. I mean, these pictures could be of a house in Timbuktu. No, I know they're not, but I mean, there's a reason that you need a supermajority and board approval. So I'd like to have these in advance so that we can get out and look at them. This one,
So let me level set of when these things were.
Well, no, these went out with, because of the time frame, these went in everybody's basket yesterday, so
Okay.
there
All
has
right.
not.
All right.
You know, now we've agreed that the preceding Friday before meetings, everybody will have the complete package. The other thing that happens, Marty, just from my experience last year, there are a lot of times when people are aware that their case is coming before the board for an attorney's action and get back to Mr. Thompson or someone in the administration saying, hey, come on over and take a look at this. I've cleaned the mess up. I don't want to mess around with the attorney and all that other stuff. So what we had been doing last year was holding off on these actions specifically until the day of the meeting, just to allow for that to happen. Okay? We can also simply just cross them off the list if someone does that. It doesn't.
or
make
maybe
any
the
difference.
director looking at it, doing
We'll help.
his
Oh, yeah.
duty, will notice the guy out there with a rake and call it off himself.
We've done that.
Has this guy been called?
Which one?
The
The
one with
first
the
one?
one we're talking about.
Yeah, the phone number's there, so.
Have we talked to him? And my second question was, this second one here doesn't have the cover sheet. I mean, this is the same cover sheet from years ago. This one has them.
Well, let's handle this first one.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
At this point, there's a motion, the action that we would normally take at this point is to take the next step of legal action and letters, not setting aside the issue that Dave has been talking about and we've both been talking about is how do we get the legal review of what we can and can't do proactively. I agree wholeheartedly, we gotta nail that down as to what we are and are not allowed to do.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and vote to send it to the OP attorney for action, which includes the absolute demand and a date certain that we're gonna go on the property, fix it, and build it. Now, if we can't do that, I think Joe will mention it. But if we can do it, we've gone the notice, we've gone the step, and we don't have to have this meeting again. I don't wanna look at this guy for the next 3 years, every, regular meeting, because we've sent him another letter.
Mr. Terry, I have a question.
Yes.
When the property transfers ownership, is Ocean Pines notified immediately, or is it every 6 months when the tax updates are done?
Do you know, is the closing, aren't we notified?
Typically, they have to do
The resale certificate, correct.
Right.
However, but if it's through a bank, there's no resale certificate. Or if it's a private owner, they're gonna waive that because they don't even know about it.
Right.
So my question is, when the county gets a recordation of a deed and a property, how are we notified?
I don't know how frequent, okay.
I'll take a shot at answering this one because I've been through some of this.
Okay.
Down at our end of the properties down here. When you do, at the closing, normally there are some paid up dues that someone has already paid and they need to be trued up. So that if you've already paid the dues and you're selling the house in mid-year, you owe somebody they owe you some money back at closing. I would assume at that point, in the midst of that process, the closing companies that do the closings would recognize that and would notify the administration, or at least a new owner through that process should be notified that they're now a member of Ocean Pines.
I think with the
But you would know
foreclosure,
more
it's
than
a
I
little
would
bit
about
different
what
than
goes on at
that.
a closing.
But I think if we have a lien filed,
Well, that's a different
the first
issue.
thing that's
That's a
paid
different
is the
issue.
taxes or municipals, and then the second thing is the HOA fees, and I think up to $1,200 or $1,500, I'm not exactly sure, and then the mortgage. That's changed. It used to be the HOA was at the
Yeah,
bottom.
right,
So
right.
that's a good thing. But the question is, if we go and clean up this gentleman's or either one of these properties, do we put a lien in the county saying that how much it's, what we incurred cost-wise?
Yes.
Good, that's
Yeah,
just
we
what I
do.
wanted to know, okay.
We do not. I'm gonna call the question on this one. The action is to move it forward to the attorney with the understanding that the associated issue of what we are and are not allowed to do get nailed down. All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, next one. This is a dandy.
Nicely built house though.
The next one.
Is that a Calaban now? Oh, yeah. Nice house.
All right.
That was short.
Next one's been through this process with us.
Right.
We've had no luck with it. We're asking to have access, or to have, you have seen this one. We've approved attorney, there's been no action.
I mean, I went over and saw the house.
Yeah.
In one book.
So, you'll notice the case was forwarded to Chris Woodley for legal action September 2011, last year at this time. So, they've taken no action, nothing's occurred. Instead of, going through the judgment process and still having no work, we're asking in this particular case with a supermajority vote of the board to grant access, and we'll have Public Works go on and clean it up.
This does not involve going inside the house.
No.
Yeah, this is a point of discussion. Not because I'm not in favor of doing this. I've personally inspected this. I would say yes, in terms of doing it, but here's the question, okay? We'll just clean up Stewart and clean up that. That's fundamentally, if you went over there, you go by and look at it, you say, look at that. The trees are overgrown, and they've got a swing that's in the back. It used to be a nice spot under the trees, but now it's not a pretty spot. And there's a lot of different things. The house itself is very nice. I said, your house. It's very
I
nice.
built it, it's not my house.
It's a very nice house, and you almost wonder how it could get. And moreover, there are significant. If you just look at it, you see that not only was the house pretty good, but they made significant effort to improve the property landscaping. I'm talking about. So here, I think we can both do it and send them in, but how much is? Do you understand my question?
Sure I do. I think at this point, we would authorize, in saying yes to this, we would be authorizing Bob to take action along with the Public Works Department to do a reasonable cleanup in the eyes of at
Okay.
some point.
Use reasonable judgment in doing the cleanup and
Right.
leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
Are we removing the
Hope we don't
fence?
get sued. Well, that's the question.
Well, they're saying yes, removing the fence.
Yes. Look, we've got somebody here who's flat out ignored us, and we're looking, we've been through the whole process. This is right up your alley, Marty. This is where we gotta go.
But I haven't seen that, unfortunately.
Well, okay,
I can see this.
I believe.
I can see this.
Well, okay.
Makes me
You're
wonder
approaching
why
it.
we haven't already gone after it.
I believe my inspectors, I believe are Bob Thompson and his team, when they have presented this is a serious request, but I will,
Tom, when you say you believe your inspectors,
yes,
me too, but it's not their responsibility, it's ours.
it is this gentleman's responsibility for having put this in front of us.
It's our responsibility, he only has the
All right.
authority.
Do I have a motion to take?
A motion
Do I have a
made.
second? Any more discussion? Takes a super majority to go through this. All those in favor?
Oh, what happens if well, you got a super majority, I'm going to abstain because I have not seen the follow-up stuff.
Okay. Advisory committees. We have on Monday, and I will ask Michelle to make copies of this for everybody at this point. We approved the committees, but I will go through them today. Again, a copy of this will be provided, if you walk over there with a copy of it. Agriculture review, Dave Stevens, bylaws and resolutions, Dave Stevens. Rex and Parks will be Terry Moore. Budget and Finance, Terry Moore. Comprehensive Plan, Dan Statersky. Environmental National Assets, Ray Unger. Gloves. Sharon. Dan is Marine. Advisory Golf is Dave. Communications, Marty. Tennis Advisory is myself. Aquatics is myself. Ocean Plains Volunteer Fire Department is Ray. Worcester County Government Interface is Ray and myself as President and Vice President. County Wastewater is Bob. Search Committee for the next nominations for the board will be with me, and the Elections Committee is with Dan as the Secretary. So that is so I need an approval of this list.
Move to approve.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We all get copies of
Yeah. I updated it where Terry and I did a swap on that. And Sharon, you talked about it. Okay. Now, we do have an additional group and then one other action to take. Okay, we've got Tom Bickerstaff. We'll take them one at a time. We have Tom Bickerstaff as a reappointment to the Budget and Finance Committee. Any objections to that? Okay. We have Bill Cordwell as an appointment to the Budget and Finance, the initial appointment for a 3-year term. Any objections to that? We have John Wetzelberger. I'm pronouncing that correctly, I hope I am. He's been on the committee before, but this is a reappointment for the 3-year term. And Terry?
Yeah, I also have Dennis Hudson has asked for consideration as chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Can he add,
I'm thinking he can.
I think he can add subtract. Yeah, I think so.
He can send an email, so we're good.
that Dennis Hudson?
So, any objections to Dennis' appointment as the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee?
No.
Okay.
Mr. President, for the benefit of folks who are not in the audience who asked the question, how do you spell Wetzelberger?
Oh,
It's WETZELBERGER. I'd given somebody the wrong answer to the spelling of that name.
Another correction on that, Mr. President.
yes.
Yeah, John has been a chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee, but you didn't read the last part. It's for the floor.
For the park.
This is
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a new appointment.
Thank you for that clarification, Dave. Yep, that would have been a misrepresentation of where you, thank you. He served on those, and finance committees before, but that's fine. Good additions. Anything for the good of the cause? Anything else?
I move to
Do we
adjourn.
give maybe another shot at the end since we
Got media.
we moved them to the end, didn't we?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Next meeting.
We'll be here for questions, okay? I'm not going to violate you. Unless the board wants to vote to change the agenda, which can happen.
No.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. We'll be here, guys, if you have questions.
Okay. Media questions. Unofficial media questions.
What's the address of the properties in question you've been discussing?
One's at Crest Haven. One I looked at. That's an interesting